The Ethiopian Bible exposed the Antichrist before the West even saw him. Imagine a world where ancient prophecies, long dismissed as myth by the powerful empires of Europe, have been quietly preserved in the rugged highlands of Africa. A world where a sacred canon of scripture, untouched by colonial hands, reveals visions of cosmic battles, fallen angels, and a figure of ultimate deception, the Antichrist, centuries before the Western Church even began to grapple with such ideas. This is not the stuff of fantasy, it's the hidden legacy of the Ethiopian Bible, a collection of 81 to 88 books that includes texts like the Book of Enoch, which paints a vivid picture of end times chaos and a great deceiver rising to challenge the divine order. For generations, Ethiopia has guarded these scriptures in ancient monasteries, carved into mountainsides, where monks in flowing robes have chanted their truths in the sacred language of Ge'ez. While Rome debated doctrines and kings commissioned translations to suit their thrones, Ethiopia held fast to a fuller revelation, one that exposes the Antichrist not as a vague future threat, but as part of a primordial spiritual war that echoes through history to our modern age. In this documentary, we embark on a journey through time, from the misty origins of Christianity in Africa to the prophetic warnings that could reshape how we understand the end of days. We'll uncover how the Ethiopian Bible, with its unfiltered prophecies, foresaw the rise of deception, technological illusions, and cosmic upheavals long before the West caught up. We'll explore the cultural clashes, political intrigues, and spiritual battles that led to these texts being sidelined, and we'll reflect on what this means for us today, in a world where truth seems more elusive than ever. Prepare to have your perceptions challenged, your faith deepened, and your eyes opened to a biblical heritage that empire tried to bury, but God preserved. Let's begin at the roots, in the cradle of ancient faith. Ethiopia's story with Christianity doesn't start with European missionaries arriving on ships laden with crosses and chains. No, it begins in the 4th century AD, when the kingdom of Aksum, a powerful empire in the Horn of Africa, embraced the gospel under King Ezana. This was no superficial conversion. It was a profound transformation that wove Christianity into the fabric of Ethiopian society. King Ezana, ruling from around 320 to 360 AD, inscribed his faith on stone stelae that still stand today, declaring, "In the faith of God and the power of the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit." These obelisks, towering up to 100 feet, were not just monuments. They were symbols of a kingdom aligning itself with divine authority, blending Semitic influences. From across the Red Sea, with indigenous African traditions, Aksum was a trading powerhouse, its ports bustling with merchants from India, Arabia, and the Roman Empire, exchanging ivory, gold, and spices. This economic vitality allowed Christianity to flourish without the heavy hand of Roman oversight. Unlike the Roman Empire, where Constantine's conversion in 312 AD turned faith into a tool of statecraft, Ethiopia's adoption was organic, rooted in the evangelism of Frumentius, a Syrian Christian who became the first bishop, consecrated by Athanasius of Alexandria around 328 AD. Frumentius, known as Abba Salama or Father of Peace, translated scriptures into Ge'ez, an ancient Semitic language that predates Latin and Greek in its liturgical use. Ge'ez, with its intricate script and poetic cadence, became the vessel for a Bible that included books the West would later deem apocryphal. This early independence set Ethiopia apart. While the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD debated the nature of Christ amid political pressures from Emperor Constantine, Ethiopian Christians were already compiling a canon that reflected a broader Jewish and apostolic heritage. The Ethiopian Bible, or the Orthodox Tewahedo Canon, includes the standard Old and New Testaments, but adds texts like 1 Enoch, Jubilees, the Ascension of Isaiah, and others. books that delve into angelic rebellions, messianic prophecies, and warnings of a great deceiver. These weren't additions for novelty. They were seen as essential, inherited from Jewish communities in Africa and the Middle East, preserved through oral traditions and scribal devotion. Consider the cultural context. Ethiopia's society was a mosaic of Cushitic, Semitic, and Nilotic peoples, where kings ruled as descendants of Solomon and priests maintained rituals echoing ancient Israel. The Kebra Nagast, Ethiopia's national epic composed around the 14th century but drawing on older traditions, claims that the Ark of the Covenant was brought to Aksum by Menelik Bistar, son of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. This narrative isn't mere legend. It underscores Ethiopia's self-perception as a chosen guardian of sacred truths. The Queen of Sheba, mentioned in 1 Kings 10, is portrayed as an African monarch from the land of Saba, her wisdom and wealth, rivaling Solomon's. Their union, according to the Kebra Nagast, forged a dynasty that linked Africa to biblical royalty, making Ethiopia a spiritual heir to Israel. Politically, this independence shielded Ethiopia from the schisms that fractured Western Christianity. When the Council of Chalcedon in 451 AD divided the Church over Christ's dual nature, leading to the split between Chalcedonian, Roman and Byzantine, and non-Chalcedonian, Oriental Orthodox churches, Ethiopia aligned with the latter, maintaining Miaphysite theology that emphasized Christ's unified divine human nature. This choice isolated Ethiopia theologically, but preserved its autonomy. Economically, as Aksum minted its own gold coins emblazoned with crosses, the first kingdom to do so, it asserted Christian identity without Roman subsidy. Technologically, Ethiopian scribes developed illuminated manuscripts on vellum using inks from local minerals, creating codices that survived invasions and time. But why does this matter for exposing the Antichrist? It all circles back to the extra books in the Ethiopian Canon, particularly the Book of Enoch. Composed between the 3rd century BC and 1st century AD, First Enoch is a composite work attributed to Enoch, the biblical figure who walked with God and was no more. Genesis 5:24. In Ethiopian tradition, Enoch is revered as a prophet of Cushite descent, black African, whose visions unveil heavenly secrets. The book describes the Watchers, fallen angels who descend to earth, mate with human women, and produce the Nephilim, giant hybrids that corrupt humanity. These angels teach forbidden knowledge. Azazel instructs in metallurgy for weapons and jewelry, Semjaza in enchantments and root-cutting for sorcery, others in astrology and divination. This narrative isn't just ancient lore. It's a blueprint for understanding deception and rebellion against God. Enoch prophesies judgment on these beings, foreseeing a time when the Son of Man, a messianic figure, will execute divine justice. In chapters 46 to 48, Enoch sees the Son of Man seated on the throne of glory, pre-existing with the Ancient of Days, a clear foreshadowing of Christ. But woven into this is a warning of ultimate deception, a figure or force that mimics divine authority, leading astray through false knowledge and power. Scholars like Margaret Barker, a biblical expert, argue that Enoch's visions influence New Testament eschatology, including references to the Antichrist in 2 Thessalonians 2 and Revelation 13, a lawless one who exalts himself as God, performing signs and wonders to deceive. In the Ethiopian Bible, Enoch's exposure of this Antichrist-like deception is explicit. The fallen angels represent prototypes of the Antichrist, beings who promise enlightenment but deliver corruption, twisting creation's order. Ethiopia preserved this text when the West discarded it during the formation of the Canon at councils like Laodicea, 363 AD, and Carthage, 397 AD. Why the rejection? Political reasons. Enoch's apocalyptic tone challenged Roman imperial stability, emphasizing heavenly over earthly authority. Culturally, its Jewish pseudepigraphal style didn't fit the Hellenistic preferences of early church fathers like Jerome, who compiled the Vulgate around 405 AD, excluding it. Yet the New Testament echoes Enoch. Jude 1:14-15 quotes it directly. "Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment on all." Peter in 2 Peter 2:4 references angels cast into hell, and the concept of fallen angels influencing human sin appears in Revelation's depiction of Satan as the Deceiver. Ethiopia's inclusion of Enoch meant its theologians, like the 13th century scholar George of Sagla, integrated these warnings into liturgy and teaching, viewing the Antichrist not as a distant myth, but as a recurring spiritual threat manifesting in tyrants, false prophets, and end-times figures. Let's delve deeper into the Book of Enoch's structure and its Antichrist revelations. Divided into 5 sections: the Book of Watchers, Parables, Astronomical Book, Dream Visions, and Epistle of Enoch. It builds a cosmic drama. The Book of Watchers, chapters 1-36, details the angels' fall. 200 watchers, led by Semjaza and Azazel, swear an oath on Mount Hermon to defile themselves with women. Their offspring, the Nephilim, devour humanity's resources, leading to violence and cannibalism. God instructs Enoch to pronounce judgment. The angels are bound in the earth until the day of consummation, their children slain. This isn't mere mythology. It's a theological explanation for evil's origin, prefiguring the Antichrist as a hybrid of divine pretense and human corruption. In the Parables, chapters 37-71, Enoch's visions of the Son of Man contrast with hidden kings and mighty ones who oppress the righteous, symbolizing Antichrist forces. Chapter 48 describes the Son of Man as hidden from the beginning, while the wicked plot in vain. Ethiopian interpreters such as the 15th century monk Abba Georgis of Gasha saw this as prophesying a deceiver who arises in the last days, mirroring Daniel 7's little horn and Revelation's beast. Comparatively, Western Christianity only rediscovered Enoch in the 18th century when Scottish explorer James Bruce brought manuscripts from Ethiopia in 1773. Bruce, venturing into Gondar amid civil wars, described monasteries like Debre Libanos, where scrolls were guarded by monks who fasted rigorously. His translation in 1821 sparked interest, influencing thinkers like William Blake and later eschatologists. But by then, the West had developed its own Antichrist theories, often tying them to popes or emperors in Reformation polemics, missing Enoch's deeper cosmic layer. Now consider the global impact. Ethiopia's preservation influenced African Christianity broadly. When Portuguese explorers arrived in the 16th century, seeking Prester John, a legendary Christian king, they found Emperor Lebna Dengel, 1508-1540, ruling a realm with Enochian teachings. Diplomatic exchanges, like the 1520 embassy to Portugal, highlighted doctrinal differences, with Ethiopians defending their Canon against Jesuit attempts to impose Roman Catholicism. The Jesuits, under Ignatius Loyola's order founded in 1534, saw Ethiopia as a mission field, but clashes over books like Enoch led to failed conversions and wars, culminating in the 1632 expulsion of Jesuits after Emperor Fasilides restored orthodoxy. Economically, Ethiopia's isolation preserved its traditions but limited technological exchange. While Europe advanced with the printing press, Gutenberg 1440, Ethiopian Bibles remained handwritten, illuminated with vibrant inks from ochre and lapis, depicting black-skinned saints and angels. This artistic style, with elongated, Figures and symbolic motifs reinforced cultural identity, portraying the Antichrist as a pale, horned deceiver, in contrast to the bronze-footed Christ of Revelation 1:15. Politically, Enoch's warnings resonated during invasions. During the 16th century Ottoman-backed Adal Sultanate War, led by Ahmad Gran, 1529-1543, Ethiopians invoked Enoch's judgments against infidels, seeing Gran as an antichrist figure. Portuguese aid, including 400 musketeers, helped defeat him at Wainadaga in 1543, blending prophecy with warfare. Later, during Italian colonization attempts in the 19th-20th centuries, Emperor Menelik II, 1889-1913, drew on biblical heritage to rally troops at Adwa in 1896, defeating Italy and preserving independence, the only African nation to do so during the scramble for Africa. Technologically, while the West industrialized, Ethiopia's focus on spiritual tech, monastic scriptoria, rock-hewn churches, like Lalibela's 12th-century marvels, maintained ancient knowledge. Lalibela, king from 1181-1221, commissioned 11 churches carved from volcanic tuff, symbolizing New Jerusalem, where Enoch's visions were chanted during liturgies. These sites, with underground tunnels and symbolic carvings, embodied resilience against Antichrist-like oppressors. Moving to the Book of Jubilees, another Ethiopian canon book, composed around 160-150 BC. Jubilees retells Genesis and Exodus in 50-year cycles, Jubilees emphasizing angelic influences on history. It warns of spirits of Mastema, Satan, deceiving nations, prefiguring the Antichrist's false signs. Chapter 23, Prophecies shortened lifespans, and children wiser than elders, echoing modern youth's tech-savvy, and a time when they will see everything in distortion, akin to AI deepfakes and misinformation. Ethiopian scholars like the 14th century Zera Yacob, not the emperor, integrated Jubilees into philosophy, arguing against superstition in his Hatata treatise, seeing deception as the Antichrist's tool. This influenced resistance to colonial ideologies, where Europeans portrayed Africans as primitive, ignoring their prophetic depth. The Ascension of Isaiah, dated to the 1st-2nd century AD, depicts Isaiah's vision of heavens, where he sees the beloved Christ descending, opposed by Beliar, Satan, who sends a false Messiah. Chapter 4 describes this son of lawlessness, ruling 3 years, performing miracles and persecuting the church, mirroring 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4. Ethiopia's inclusion allowed early recognition of Antichrist patterns in historical figures like Nero or later colonizers. Controversies abound in historiography. Western scholars like Adolf von Harnack, 1851-1930, dismissed these texts as Jewish fables, reflecting Eurocentric bias. Modern interpreters, such as Elaine Pagels in her 2012 book Revelations, note how apocalyptic texts like Enoch empowered marginalized groups, explaining Ethiopia's resilience. African theologians like John Mbiti, 1931-2019, argue these books affirm African spirituality, with communal readings countering individualist Western views. Lesser-known facts. In 1920s Ethiopia, during Rastafari's, later Haile Selassie regency, Enoch inspired Rastafarianism in Jamaica, viewing Selassie as the returned Christ, opposing Babylon's Antichrist system. Selassie, crowned in 1930, gifted Enoch manuscripts to libraries, spreading awareness side tangent, compared to other eras, like the Dead Sea Scrolls discovery in 1947, which included Enoch fragments, validating Ethiopian preservation, or the Nag Hammadi Library, 1945, with Gnostic texts echoing Enoch's themes but diverging theologically, analyzing causes. The West's exclusion stemmed from anti-Jewish sentiments post-70 AD temple destruction, favoring Greek philosophy over apocalyptic Judaism. Effects: a narrower eschatology, focusing on personal salvation over cosmic warfare, leaving modern Christians unprepared for deception in politics or technology. Today, with AI generating illusions and global leaders wielding godlike power, Enoch's warnings feel prescient. The Ethiopian Bible didn't just expose the Antichrist, it equipped believers to discern him. In conclusion, the Ethiopian Bible stands as a testament to divine preservation amid human erasure. It reminds us that truth often resides on the margins, guarded by the faithful against empire's tide. As we face uncertain times, perhaps it's time to revisit these ancient voices. They didn't just predict the Antichrist, they showed us how to overcome him through the eternal Son of Man. Let this be a call to seek the fuller word, to honor Africa's role in salvation history, and to stand vigilant. The silence is broken, the exposure is here. What will you do with it?